Welcome to this week's edition of the Ultimate Deck Podcast. I'm Shane Chapman, your host, and we're here live from the new studio at the Ultimate Deck shop. We've got this thing outfitted with new equipment, and we've been promising for a while that because of this new equipment, we were going to get to doing the old interview style ones with some of your favorite Instagram contractors. And we've picked a special one today to bring on for this first episode from the studio. You're probably already following him because he's got 21 point some thousand followers, and he's big on the social media scene nowadays. It's Shane Collinsgru. How are you, Sean?
What's going on, Shane? I'm doing pretty well. Good,
man. Are you in a studio as well? Did you build up a studio just for this interview?
I did, yeah. I outfitted it just last week. Spent some pretty good money on it, but I think it's worth it for this interview. I've been really looking forward to it.
Yeah, we were talking about actually getting you up here. I think at one point we were going to put you up at a Holiday Inn or a Super 8 or something, get you into the studio.
Yeah, I was planning on staying up there for a week or so, and just making sure we get this interview just right. And I feel like this is my big break right now.
This could put you on a platform, that's for sure.
I know. I'm preparing myself for it, but I think I'm ready.
Yeah. So the reason that logistically was a little bit difficult is because this podcast is live from Regina, Saskatchewan, up in beautiful Canada, and you are not from here. Tell us a little bit about where you're from and who Sean is behind the scenes, the family life side of things.
I am from Jersey, New Jersey, right outside of Philadelphia, though. So I'm a huge Eagles fan, and grew up in South Jersey. We run our business down here, and just live with my wife Sarah, our dog Ziggy, and that's pretty much it. Besides work, I mean, there's really not too much time for anything else at this point.
I hear you, man. Did you say your dog's name is Ziggy, like with a Z?
Yep, Ziggy. Yeah,
that's great. My sister-in-law's dog's name is also Ziggy. So look at that. We've got a rapport built already.
Yeah. Yep. It's a good name.
Good deal. So why the hell are all you deck builders from New Jersey?
I don't know. I've noticed that. Most of them on Instagram are from North Jersey. There's like a million deck builders in North Jersey. I think every house in North Jersey must have a deck because there's a ton of them. They're all doing awesome work, and it seems like they're all super busy. So I don't know, but I've actually noticed that as well.
Yeah, it's like there's a ton of guys from up there. All the guys we seem to meet at these shows all the time. It's like half of them are from the Jersey area, so something's going on up there.
I know. I think it's just because it's so heavily populated. There's like a million people in like such a small state.
Sure,
it's really terrible, and I think that's why. But it is crazy how many deck builders are here.
100%. So you own Premier Outdoor Living, and I believe you're the sole owner of that company. You guys do some fantastic work in people's backyards, not just decks, but the hardscape area and stuff as well. How long has that been your life?
That has been the last 4 years. We just hit 4 years in business in January. And before that, I was doing some landscaping stuff, just like lawn maintenance, mulching, that kind of stuff. And kind of fell into, we got the chance to work on a really cool deck and patio project kind of randomly. I tossed my way into it and said, oh yeah, of course I know how to do that stuff. And I really had no idea, but it kind of sparked something in me. I loved doing it. The project turned out awesome. And it just made me realize that there really is a market for this. And, if you can come up with really cool ideas and market yourself in a certain way that you can find the clients that are willing to pay good money to really get something unique.
So you were doing, when like 4 years ago when Premier Outdoor Living started, you were doing just landscaping, or was that before the 4 years?
Yeah. So 4 years ago, I was pretty much just doing landscaping, like mowing lawns, doing mulching, stuff like that. And it was like the fall before that under my old business, we built our first deck and patio. And I just really liked it. So as soon as we were done that job, it was a pretty big job. We were there for like 8 weeks. And as soon as that was done, I sold all my lawn equipment and just jumped right into the design build side with really no prospects of work and a new mortgage. But I really didn't think it through too much, but it's been working out so far. So,
it's funny that every time you hear somebody give advice on starting a business, they always say, oh, you got to have a business plan. You have to have all your ducks in a row and you have to have everything figured out before you start. And just about anybody you talk to that actually has a successful business, it didn't start that way. You know what I mean? It's a lot of winging.
If you do that, if you do that, you'll just talk yourself out of doing it. I mean, if I knew how hard it was going to be and all that stuff, like before I started, I probably wouldn't have started it, but you really just need to jump into it. And, I knew I really had a passion for it after that first project, and I just knew I'd figure out a way to make it work. And, that's really the most important thing. You got to jump into it and, get rid of all your other options.
Yeah, I think the passion's more important than the planning per se. Not to say that planning's not important. Of course it is. But if you're destined to make it work and you're passionate about what you do, like, you'll find a way. There'll be obstacles along the way, but you'll figure it out every time, right? So I mentioned before that you guys are doing both kind of the landscape side of things, the hardscapes and the decks and whatnot, and pretty much every one of your projects includes both. There's not a lot of guys doing that. Like, it's certainly not in my market, not in a lot of markets. And most of the builders you follow on Instagram are deck only builders. They don't do the landscaping. And if they do, they subcontract it. How much of an advantage is that for you? And how often are your customers looking for somebody to do both versus you kind of saying like, no, we'll handle your whole backyard. I got some other ideas for the other spots too, even though you're only looking for a deck. Like, how much of that is coming to because they're wanting somebody to do both, and how much of it's kind of you win them over with that because you do both?
I think it's a little bit of both. It definitely, and that was another thing that I kind of just fell into, and after we started, I kind of realized that, and it's the same way in my area, there's really not a lot of people that do both the construction side with the decks and the hardscaping with patios. So I just started doing both, and I just thought that it made for a better outdoor living space. The more textures and materials that you can bring into a design, the more depth it has. And it's just, I just thought that was a better outdoor living space. So, that's why I started doing it, because I really like the design first and foremost. So I started doing that. And then afterwards I kind of realized there's really not anybody in my area that's doing both of these. So in the beginning, it was kind of, I would get a call for a deck, and they would want, something pretty large, like a 600-700 square foot deck. And I would say, I think a better way to spend that money would be, build a smaller deck and center that around one living space, like create an outdoor dining room on the deck, and then step down onto a patio that could be like kind of a lounge area or a fire pit area, and then incorporate landscaping. And the landscaping really arose because I was trying to build my whole business through social media, and the biggest thing was like getting good pictures of the projects. And anybody that's listened to this knows that, you always intend to go back to projects and get pictures when the people plant stuff, and you never do.
Never.
So I just started including that on all my projects so that the finished pictures would look complete, and we would have good content to share. So that's where that started, and that kind of took off. And now in my area, we've carved out like a nice little niche where people kind of call us and they just want us to do our thing. And most of our clients just kind of let us run with it, which is super cool.
Yeah, I was going to say that's one of the major side benefits of the fact that you're taking care of the whole project around there, is that your pictures always end up looking amazing because the space is completely finished. I know when I was building, one of the most frustrating things, to your point, was you build this beautiful deck, but the none of the landscaping is done, or the patio's not in yet, or the grading's not done, or the furniture's not on. Like, nothing is ready. And so it ends up not looking super great. It's like the deck's nice, but everything else is just a construction zone. So the thing about your pictures on social media is they're very attractive pictures to look at. So they do quite well.
Yeah. That's really where it all started, was just, I wanted like the pictures were what was going to sell our next job. So I wanted the pictures to look good. And in the beginning, I was doing most of this extra stuff just for free because, I first of all didn't have any other jobs to do because nobody had ever heard of us. And I knew that I wanted to kind of build the brand through social media and kind of tell the story of who we are. And that's kind of how that arose, was just, all right, we're just going to make this look really cool so that we can sell some more jobs because we don't have any work. And in the beginning I was barely making any money, but I kind of had a plan and thought that would work.
Sure. So a lot of your designs right now are very clean, linear lines, squared off shapes. On the other kind of the end of the decking world are this trend of curved decks and curving. Is that something you're looking to get into, or do you just prefer to stick with the kind of more clean modern lines?
I'm a little bit torn on that because, especially now that I'm doing the vlog, it's like, you can only talk about so much stuff when, you're doing a deck and a patio on every project. So I feel like the need to like try new things is going to be more and more. Just in general though, I kind of like square straight lines. I think it's more functional. Most furniture is designed for square spaces. So I think it just creates more functional space. The only time we really incorporate circles, we do a lot of circles on our patios and stuff. Mm-hmm. I find that that's really useful for like a fire pit area. But besides that, most furniture is just not made for round spaces. So that's kind of where the functionality of it comes in. But I think pretty soon I'll be buying a heat bending kit and testing that out for sure.
Right. Well, when you go to buy one, you know who sells them, right?
Do you sell them?
We do sell them, actually.
Do you?
We do. We sell the heat con kits. So I
cannot wait to hit you up for that and get that podcast guest discount and
that's right.
Get rolling with it. That's gonna be awesome.
Right. So it's somewhat refreshing to hear you have that approach towards the curved decking, though, because I think you're right. I believe that, like, let's say 70% of the projects you see on Instagram and whatnot that are curved probably shouldn't be. It's because to your point, it's not the most functional shape. It doesn't work with a lot of furniture and whatnot. And I agree with you that like a fire pit is a very obvious spot where a sit in the round kind of thing works. But it's so on trend now, and everybody's kind of getting onto it now that everybody's looking to put a circle or a curve where it maybe doesn't belong, but they're just excited to use it and sell it and show that they can do it, that it just finds its way where it doesn't belong sometimes. So I don't think I've ever once looked at one of your jobs and thought like, man, that would have been better if that deck was curved. And to your point, you put a lot of soft lines into the hardscape portion of it too. So it all ties it together. So it's quite nice.
Yeah. And it's nice because square, or rectangular decks are a lot faster to build, and it kind of works out better that way. But
for sure,
I think eventually I'll have to at least try it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the advantage it used to be because there's more and more guys getting into it, but it's sure nice to be able to do anything that the customer asks, I guess, right? To kind of remove any barriers that you might have in design. So you've used composite or composite, as you fellow Americans call it, and PVC products. Do you have a preference between the two? Is there a brand that sticks out to you that you like using, or are you kind of a jack of all trades as far as the brands and types go?
I used composite pretty much exclusively up until this year. That was the first time I tried PVC. I had been using exclusively Trex last year, and I think they have a really nice product, but I thought that their colors they just needed a little bit more in their color spectrum. So that's kind of why I decided to branch out a little bit and try some new stuff. So I've tried some PVC this year. I really like, there's some other things that you just need to be aware of with the contraction and all that kind of stuff, but it's awesome that it's super light. And we've used Wolf, and with that, I'm really impressed with the color of the boards. They have a really nice color palette. I think them and TimberTech really have like the two best color options. I haven't used the TimberTech AZAC yet, but that will probably be one of our jobs coming up. We'll get to try that out.
Yeah, it seems like there's guys who they kind of pick a camp, a lot of guys, right? And maybe it's due to some loyalty programs and whatnot, but I always like to hear people's opinions that have used both. They're not just so brand loyal that they're kind of blind to everything else. So I like to hear those options. For sure, Wolf has a beautiful color palette. If there's one thing that they're known for, that's it for sure.
Yeah.
Now,
and there's just so many options. I think them and the TimberTech AZAC, they have just so many different options and different browns and different grays that you can really get creative and mix a ton of colors, which is really cool.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. Almost Wolf's entire lineup. And anytime I refer to Wolf, I'm referring to their PVC, the Serenity line. I don't know much about their composite line, but it almost seems like all of their colors can play with each other. Like there's a couple that maybe you wouldn't pair, but most of them you can kind of pick and choose and make them work together. And they, for whatever reason, they do. And
absolutely.
Just recently, like AZEK had gone to a 50-year warranty, but Wolf just did that about 5 days ago too. We got an email that said, hey, the best just got better. Wolf's bumping their warranty from 25 to 50 years. So that's like phenomenal product.
I just saw that. And I figure 30 years, 50 years, what's the difference? I don't think,
100%,
at that point, it's like, if it's going to fail, it's probably going to fail in the first like 5 or 10. So
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the lumber underneath is only going to last 18 years at best anyway. So really, whatever, right? But it's a good marketing gimmick, I guess, to throw a big number on that.
Yeah.
We mentioned that you have the competitive advantage of doing both your, like being able to take care of the entire backyard. What's your market like? We talked about this before too, there's so many builders being up there. Do you face a lot of competition when you go visit your customers? Are they saying I'm getting quotes from 3 or 4 other guys and guys are grinding each other in price? Is it like that there? Or do you find that you're able to kind of hold your own quite well?
I find a little bit of both. Most of like the deck guys that are on Instagram and stuff are up in North Jersey, so they're like an hour and a half away from me. In my area, there's still a decent amount of deck builders, but the nice thing that I found was to combat like the square foot price shopping was we're kind of designing it so we're really picking the products that we're using, because if somebody picks a color combination that I just really don't like, we're going to walk away from the job, because we only do about 12 to 15 a year. So we can do that. So that's kind of helpful from the beginning, that we're really picking a lot of stuff. Plus we're doing a deck, a patio, and landscaping. A lot of times lighting, or we're doing a pergola as well. So all of that is priced together, and they can't kind of price shop that around as much, where if you're just doing a 500 square foot deck, it's like, hey, this guy's doing it for $45 a square foot and you're doing it for 60. Can you come down? So I found that was really helpful, that, people can't like get down to your square foot price, because there's so many different things involved with it.
Interesting. So when you deliver a quote, you're giving them like a lump sum number that includes the entire project, the hardscape, the deck, everything.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So that's an advantage I didn't even think about you having before, is that people can't price shop you against others based on price at all, really, because you never know what portion of the deck is what.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Cool.
Yeah, exactly. That was another advantage that I kind of just realized after I started doing it. And after people were asking me to kind of break it down and say, okay, what's the deck cost? What's this cost? And, I kind of tell people we specialize in like a full makeover. So we're not going to do a deck without landscaping. We'll do a deck without a patio, but the deck has to have, some, maybe like a stone planter wall or at least landscaping. So like it has to look finished when we're done. So, it makes it a little bit harder for them to just, it's not apples to apples when they're shopping it to a deck contractor.
Right. Interesting. So when you're coming up with your quotes and you're doing your quotes, how much of a process is it for you? Have you kind of figured out a system that allows you to speed the process up and become more efficient with your quoting? Or are you sitting down and manually figuring out every piece of a deck? Do you do it based on square foot? How do you kind of come to your number?
Recently I've tried to do like a square foot price and kind of just, get me to a ballpark and then figure out, what are the complicated details on this, try to figure out how long it's going to take me. Labor is really the biggest cost. So like really trying to figure out how many days is this going to take us is the biggest thing. So I do a little bit of both. It really depends on the project, but most of them end up taking longer than expected, as most people do. But we really try to be creative, especially with the patio stuff that we do. We're doing, unique inlays and stuff like that. And I usually don't figure that out until we start the project. kind of have an idea of what products we're going to use and stuff like that. But I like to keep a lot of it spontaneous, and that's when the best ideas come to me. So I kind of just ballpark it a little bit and make sure there's a little bit of a cushion if we run over. But I kind of do a little bit of both, and it depends on the project.
Do you find ever, like, I'm sure you're getting the right clients because you sound like you're pretty selective, but do you find because of the fluidity of your quotes that they're kind of more ballpark numbers, do you get pushback at the end when you deliver that final balance that's due? Do you ever get people come back and be like, whoa, that's a little bit different than I thought it was going to be? And how do you deal with that?
So you mean like at the end of the job?
Yes. So you're saying that you don't really, sometimes the inlays happen during the job, whatever. Like, is there a lot of communication about what costs, what kind of the cost overruns and whatnot at the end of the job? Or do you sometimes get customers that are surprised that you said ballpark, this was going to be 70 and now you're billing me for 87. What happened? Do you get that much?
So whatever price we give them from the beginning, that's the final price. So
okay.
I kind of do that ballparking, like in the estimation phase. Like I have an idea of what we're going to try to do with, those details that I'm going to come up with on the fly. So I kind of factor that into the price. But, even if something takes way longer than expected, I never pass that on to the client. It's just whatever the price is in the beginning, unless they go and add some features that we weren't going to do. But, that's kind of one of the things that I think people like about us is the price is set from the beginning. We're starting from scratch. We're ripping everything out. So there's no unexpected things. We're not working on an old deck frame that needs to be repaired. There's really no extra cost that the client incurs unless they add like a lighting package or they want to expand the patio. But, I kind of factor that into the pricing that we're going to do something really unique with the patio or with the deck. And, the price is set before we start the project.
Now, with your projects, do you take care of any potential maintenance things up front? And what I mean by that is I know there's a lot of deck builders out there that will build you a cedar wood or wood deck, but they don't want to oil it. And there's some landscaping companies out there that'll put a patio in, but they don't want to seal it. They don't want that part of the job. Do you do all those things for people, or do you kind of say, here it is as is, good idea to get this done though?
So we, anytime that we do a wood deck, we'll stain it. And again, that comes back to, we want it to look good when we take pictures, but we did one wood deck last year and we did one the year before. And I think going forward, we're not really going to do any more wood decks. So that's not really going to come up too much. We don't seal the patios. And most people don't around me ever seal them, but if somebody wants like a wet look, they want like a gloss finish or a kind of a sheen to it, we'll do it, but we typically don't. We build it, any maintenance down the line, somebody else is going to take care of that.
Perfect. Now, shout out to your vlog, which you started not too long ago, and you can fill people in on how to find that because I don't know the exact address to it on YouTube, whatever, but you've started this vlog and you're kind of vlogging components of every project. And so you're like, there's not many guys doing that so formally. Lots of guys are using Instagram stories or photos and whatnot and putting project pictures like that, but they're not doing formal vlogs to kind of follow along. How are you finding that's helping you from a finding new jobs avenue, or what's the payback for you right now? Or is it more of just a fun project for you?
It's a little bit of both. I think just being in front of the camera and showing people behind the scenes makes potential clients feel more comfortable with you. They can kind of feel like your passion for it, and they know that you really care about what the project looks like, which really helps. But it's really a little bit of both. I think we're doing it because we want to just produce more content. There's definitely some drawbacks to it. The jobs are taking longer because we're just trying to film all the aspects of it and stuff. But it's made the workday so much more fun. So I think in the future there's going to be a lot more. It's going to be a marketable thing to be producing content with this kind of stuff. I think, companies in this industry are a little bit behind the times on it, but I think influencer marketing is going to be a real thing in this industry. And, I kind of want to just try to put out some content because it kind of plays to what I think I'm good at. I'm not like a super organized business owner. So I knew that I didn't want to scale from 15 to 50 projects a year. I kind of want to play to my strengths. And I think that's the creativity and a little bit of personality. So I thought the video thing would be cool. And it's really just been super fun. I mean, it's kind of like mandatory now that we have fun every day on the project because otherwise the videos are going to be super boring. So that's been like a really cool side effect of it.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear because it's beneficial. So it's nice to know that you're having fun doing it too, because when it doesn't work is when it feels like a chore. Like some people feel like, oh, I've got to do this social media thing because that's what people do nowadays. And you just won't keep up with it if you're not having fun. So that's great to hear. Yeah. What other types of marketing are working for you right now? You're doing the vlog, you're heavy on Instagram, obviously. Or is that enough? Are you getting enough referrals from that? Or do you use other types of marketing that bring clients in?
That's really it. I used to do Facebook ads locally, and they worked really great. Another thing that helped me a whole lot was local Facebook groups. So I would just post like maybe once a week, make sure that it's like a really good picture and it's not like salesy. It's not like a flyer that says, hey, we build decks and, we're the best deck builder. Just post like a picture and, say, hey, we just finished this project and I love how this turned out. And then just post it to these local groups. And I got so many jobs through that. That really worked out super well. But now we've kind of carved out enough of a niche in our area where we have enough leads coming in that we don't need to really market too much because we're really not trying to grow beyond one crew. We only do 12 to 15 projects a year. So we get plenty of leads for that. And, I think it's just organic Facebook and Instagram is really working well now.
Awesome. And so not trying to scale, not trying to grow, when the joints start getting sore and you start getting older and don't want to be on the tools anymore, are you thinking at all about maybe in the future you would franchise Juanita's across the country?
That's definitely a real possibility. I need to get them an Instagram because I feel like we could definitely expand their business, and it's definitely got a much better shot than franchising Premier Outdoor Living. So I think that's a good idea.
Is like, I have no idea what this place is. I just like nobody does except for you, but everybody sees you posting about it and going there 6 times a week. Is it as good? Is it like, is it busy outside of Sean, or is it just you really love this place?
It is. It's like it's a really small place, in, a really small town next to me. And it's busy. I mean, people love it there. I think I love it probably more than anybody else in the world. But it's super good. It's like the best Mexican food in the world. Not that I've really tried any from anywhere else, but it's awesome.
We have an employee here by the name of Justin, and he travels a lot because he's also a musician, and he plays in a fairly big Canadian country music band artist, Jess Moskaluk. You may not know her in the States, but in Canada, she's won a lot. Like she's kind of like Shania Twain's kind of underling. And so he travels a ton across Canada. They just got finished a Canada-wide tour with some other bands. And he one day said, we need to go to this place in Regina. It's an Indian place. And because it's called the Caraway Grill for anybody locally that's listening to this, he's like, it's the best Indian food in Canada. And it's funny because most people, when they say that, they have no idea because they've never actually been to other restaurants before. It's just like they really like this one. But in his case, he's actually tried a lot of Indian restaurants in major cities, and apparently this is near the tops. But you're gonna have to come up. We should have made this podcast live from here because there's a Mexican restaurant here too. It's actually just outside of Regina. That is amazing too, and it sounds very similar in that it's just this kind of little tiny hole in the wall place, like not divey, but it's just like small and kind of non-suspect. And it's out in a small town about 40 minutes outside of Regina. Like you got to drive to it. And the town's probably only, I'm guessing like 700 to 800 people big. And this little place is just a diamond. Like, it's amazing. And you have to book, like, when it first opened a couple of years ago, there was 3-month waiting list to get a table there. It was crazy. So if anybody, again, locally is looking for another good restaurant, the Grotto in Vibank is unbelievable. And cool story, our store, the Ultimate Deck Shop, was born over supper at that restaurant between Wade and I. So that restaurant has a soft spot for us as well.
There's been many premier outdoor living decisions that have been made in Juanita.
I bet.
So I can definitely relate to that.
So earlier in the conversation, we talked about how lots of people tell you need to have a big plan in place before you get out on your own, start your own business. And that kind of, you and I never really, like, we had somewhat of a plan, but we were winging a lot of it. Now that you're kind of 4 years in and you figured out a lot of this stuff, what are some advice you'd give to somebody that's looking to follow your path, to kind of go out there and do your own thing? Is there some things you think they should know that you didn't know up front, but you're like, boy, I really wish I did?
I think probably just the biggest thing to make yourself successful is, unless you're like a really numbers oriented person and you're super organized, you can probably make it work in any industry. But really just defining what makes your business different from everybody else. You know, it doesn't have to be that you're, so much better than everybody else. You just have to be different and carve out your little niche. And I think that's what we've done, is our designs just have a certain look to them, and they're not necessarily better than anybody else's, but they have a certain look to it. And the people that like that, they'll want us to build it, because not a lot of other people are doing that exact style. And I think that's really the most important thing, is really finding something that makes you unique and then kind of building your brand around that.
You recently switched from one 3D software to another. And I think in your case, because your designs are so elaborate and they involve so many components, that it's almost absolutely a necessity for you to do 3D designs with your projects. How did you find, you were using a program by Punch the first time, I believe you said, and now you're with Real-Time Landscaping Architect. I know this is a question.
Yep.
Anytime somebody posts a design, there's always people asking, what program do you use? Can you, as somebody who's used a couple, do you have any feedback?
So I've only used those two. I've also used SketchUp. I started out on that in the beginning, but it's so tedious. The designs take forever, because there's not a deck tool. I mean, you're really just building everything from scratch. But I started out on Punch because it was only $60, and I was just like, all right, I'll download this and see how it works. And I got pretty good at using that, but once I switched over to Real-Time Landscape Architect, I realized all of the drawbacks with Punch and all the things that you couldn't do. And even Real-Time Landscape Architect, only like $400. It's not like a top of the line design software, but I feel like with that, you can really paint a realistic portrait of what the project's going to look like. And it also helps you kind of flesh out your ideas. And once you see it in 3D, you can be like, okay, the proportions on this aren't really working. And, that's a lot harder to do on paper with just like an aerial 2D, because, the heights on something just might not work that well. And you see it in 3D, you can make changes and you can really kind of perfect it before you even start.
When are you delivering those designs? Are you doing that only for the jobs that you've booked and you're then kind of going through that design process, or is that part of your proposal?
That's kind of how the process starts with the client. So now I'm charging $500 for a 3D design, but when I go and meet them initially, I try to kind of qualify them over the phone. I have some stuff on my website to try to pre-qualify them, but once I go to meet them, we kind of go over some ideas, get their feedback, what they're kind of looking for, and then kind of hit them with, okay, you're kind of looking at this budget range. And we try to like zero in on a number that they're comfortable with before we even start. So I found that if you can get them kind of committed to a budget, say like, okay, they're willing to spend $40,000, we'll kind of start there and we'll design something for $40,000. And they're willing to give you that number plus give you the $500 for a design. That's usually a super qualified lead. And they've usually been following me on Facebook or Instagram for a while, so they kind of know what we do, and it makes that closing process a lot easier.
Yeah, that's one of the big benefits of being very visible on these platforms is that people get to know you before they need to know you. You know what I mean? Like you walk into their house the first time and you're not starting at zero to sell the job. They've already got a bit of a understanding of who you are. They already know they like you because they would have screened you out before if they didn't like what they saw on Facebook or something, right? And so it just eliminates, like you've kind of got a bit of a head start on building that trust with people versus somebody who's not, that they haven't been following along on. So very important part of the process.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of one of the big things that I try to do is through the social media, it not only helps kind of capture leads and capture potential clients, but they know that I'm using their job to market to everybody else, all my future potential clients. So there's kind of like I want this project to turn out really cool too. It's not just, hey, we're gonna sell you on this really cool idea and then we're gonna build it, whatever. You know, they know that I really care about it and I want it to turn out, you know, just as good as they want it to turn out. So that kind of that's really worked out really well for us and helped us close a lot of jobs because people feel like they can trust us if they're willing to spend, you know, $50,000 on their backyard. They know that, okay, I've seen the last 10 projects they did. They all turned out really cool. You know, I have no doubt that this one's going to turn out cool too.
Do you ever get people push back and say, I don't want my backyard being posted all over social media?
No, no, I've gotten asked that a lot and I never really thought about it, but I guess I'm pretty much getting all my leads through social media. So, and it's really like the thing that people are like most excited about, especially since I started the blog. Probably most of my new subscribers are just like clients' friends because they're like, oh my God, I showed everybody at work. I sent it to my whole family. And that's really the great thing about content is that's like the new word of mouth. And people aren't really saying, hey, here's this guy's phone number, call him. They're saying, check this guy out on Facebook or Instagram. And, if you create content for their job, they want to share that to all their friends. So it really works out well in that way.
Yeah. I think that notion that people are worried about their space being put out in public, I think that comes more from the interior remodeling. I can understand somebody not wanting their, the inside of their house to be kind of documented and put out there just for security reasons, I suppose. I know when I was building too, a lot of my customers that I was working for at the moment loved that I was posting progress stuff throughout the build because they could sit at work and see what was going on at home. And so I'd often get comments and be like, this is so cool. I can share this with my mom and my whatever, so they can all follow along and see how our deck's coming. And so it was kind of a cool, it was almost like added value for them. And, we were doing it for ourselves for the most part to grow our own business, but the customers were appreciating it happening at the same time.
The only pushback I've gotten is like, if we don't film a vlog that day or something, they're like, where was the video last night?
Yeah, that's right.
That's really it. People like look forward to that like just as much as us actually building it. It's been kind of crazy.
That's awesome. So as part of that whole Instagram and social media thing, the first time I met you, I think maybe the only time I met you was at Deck Expo last year in, where were we?
Yeah.
Baltimore, I think, or did I meet you in Nashville? Yeah. Was that your first one last year?
Last year was my first one. Yep.
Okay. So that was the first one. And like we no doubt ran into each other because of the previous history on Instagram, because we were familiar with each other. What do you get from that? Like describe the community that you have on Instagram here, because it's something that before this Instagram kind of movement happened, before it became like the number one social platform, there was no community of contractors and builders that you could go shoot, talk shop with or talk ideas with or get feedback from. What does that do for you to be part of that community?
It's so cool. I mean, going to that Deck Expo was like the coolest thing. And that was on my 30th birthday. And like, I wouldn't have spent my 30th birthday doing anything else. It was just so cool to meet everybody in person that I've met through Instagram and stuff. And I left there just feeling so inspired to like build cool stuff. And, it's just awesome, meeting other people that, they're not, I mean, they're in it for the money, but you could tell they really have like such a passion for it. And it just motivates me so much to kind of see other people's work and and be inspired by it and pick up little ideas here and there through Instagram and kind of put my own spin on it and incorporate it into our projects. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think it's helping the whole, at least for the guys who are on the Instagram and doing that kind of thing, it's helping the whole industry because we're all, for the most part, everybody's friendly and cooperating, but at the same time, there's this little competitiveness behind everybody. I think that they see something cool on Instagram and they see the reaction it gets, and then they go away and be like, how can I one up that? How can I make that just a little bit cooler?
Yep.
How can I post something that gets, all this feedback and praise and everything else? And so everybody feeds off a little bit, and then they try to be, it spurs this creative, process for a lot of people to try to better themselves as well. And so I think that the benefactor of that is the customers who are getting cooler backyards nowadays. Your company's been around for 4 years, and that's probably around when this Instagram, obviously Instagram's been around longer, but as far as this little deck community, it's probably kind of around where it started. Are there certain guys out there or girls out there, companies out there that you followed on Instagram before? I would say that you've definitely put yourself in a position of being one of these kind of influencer accounts now, but who were you following before you kind of worked your way up there? Who are your major kind of,
I would say, the obvious one is Dr. Dex. I probably was following him really early on, and, I didn't realize that this community was out there for a long time until I was mostly using it to, market locally. And then probably, some of the other ones that I found early was Mark from Infinite Decks, which I know you've had on, and, even Bobby Parks on Instagram and stuff. And really just a ton of guys, and not even just in the decking industry, a lot of hardscape guys and just a lot of people that are doing, building custom homes or whatever, just networking with them and picking up business tips or, just being inspired by something that they're doing. It's been awesome. So really a ton of guys, but probably Dr. Dex is that's the obvious one.
Yeah. I think he makes everybody's list. I think for the most part, he was kind of the guy that maybe was pretty early on the scene as far as posting the cool stuff he's doing, on top of the fact that he was doing very, very cool things. And still is, right? He's still doing amazing projects. His Instagram following he's definitely an influencer to anybody. So, one thing I want to swing back on, we talked about deck brands, and that's where my head's at all the time, as far as composite versus PVC and all that stuff. What about your pavers? Are you kind of tied to one, paver company or hardscape product company that you use more than another, or do you kind of mix and match that as well?
I've pretty much exclusively used TechoBlock, and I've tried a couple other things, but really it's a really high quality product. And as far as quality, there's a lot of companies that put out, good quality stuff, but the design end, and the product options from TechoBlock are so far ahead of every other brand. They really just, you can do so much with it. They have so many different products, and that's really the one that we kind of stick with is TechoBlock, because they're constantly coming out with new products and just kind of pushing the bar as far as what you can do with the designs, with all their different products.
You mentioned that you've kind of achieved a sweet spot as far as the number of projects you're doing a year, and things are kind of going well and you feel organized and whatnot. What's left for 2019? What are your goals for this year? If not to get bigger, what keeps you going?
Really just building cool stuff. I want to become a better designer, and that's kind of how I look at myself from the get-go, is not as really a contractor, but as a designer. And I want to get better at designing stuff and just make every project cooler than the one before. That's really kind of the goal. And that's what gets me excited about it and makes work fun. And now that we're videotaping everything, it kind of puts more pressure to raise the bar with each project and at least have one really cool detail that we can kind of showcase on each project. So that's kind of the goal. Just keep improving and kind of just get a little bit better each day.
Louisville is the site of Deck Expo this year. Are you planning to attend?
Absolutely. And there's Hardscape North America is also in Louisville, the same location, like 3 weeks prior. So I think I might be out in Louisville twice in the same month later this year. So we'll see.
You should just take the whole month off and just stay down there. I don't know what there is to do in Louisville.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I thought that would be cool. I don't know what kind of sightseeing there is around Louisville that I could do for 3 weeks, but I'm sure I could come up with something.
You could start a travel vlog.
Yeah, there you go. that sounds better, actually. I might start doing that.
Yeah. I mean, working in people's backyards is cool, but it's not exactly traveling the world.
Yeah. I think you're onto something. I think I might try that.
Where can people find you, Sean? We mentioned you on Instagram. Let's hear what your handles are on all your accounts. How can they find the vlog? How can they find you?
So on Instagram, it's Premier Outdoor. On Facebook, it's Premier Outdoor LLC. You can add me on Facebook, Sean Collinsgru. And the thing that I'm really pushing the most is this vlog on YouTube, and that's at Premier Outdoor Living LLC on YouTube. We probably do like 3 to 4 videos a week, and we're just having a lot of fun with it. And I think that comes through in the videos. You can tell that we're enjoying making them and just kind of joking around and all that stuff. So that's what I would love people to check out is the vlog.
How many subscribers do you have on YouTube at this point?
We only have about 2,200 right now, but that's up about 1,200 from a couple months ago. So going in the right direction, but still a long road ahead of us.
So being on this podcast, I'm guessing you're going to see a big boost up to about 2,204.
Oh yeah, I think probably breaking through 100,000 pretty soon after this airs. So
that's right. I'm gonna get prepared. There's your retirement plan. Start making money on the internet.
Yeah.
Sean, it's been a pleasure. I don't know if there's anything else you have to add or you want to tell to the community out there at all.
I think that's it. I'm just honored to be on the Ultimate Deck Show podcast. Huge fan of the podcast. I'm just honored. So can't wait to hear it.
Good, man. We've had your name on our whiteboard for a while, and like I said, we had bigger things, and we were like, we need to save Sean from when we have the proper equipment in place. So, I'm glad we were able to.
This will be the perfect debut episode. It's gonna really be great.
That's right. I've got bad news though. I mentioned to you before we got going that I had the camera running. I was going to post that, and then I had problems with the camera focusing, and we stopped and we restarted, and then my battery died about 10 minutes in. So you're not going to see this episode on YouTube. We're going to have to save the YouTube for your vlog if people want to go to YouTube and check out stuff with regards to you.
That's all right. I've been filming the whole thing, so it's going to be on my vlog. Actually, it's not, but that would have been good. I should have done a vlog also, but
we both
next time we'll do another one. Maybe at the Deck Expo we can do it in person.
100%. Let's make that happen. Thanks so much, Sean. Everybody go give Sean a follow on his social accounts. He's a great follow. He's doing some great work. He's a big one right now, so take note. And please, if you have any ideas for the show, get a hold of us at the Ultimate Deck Shop on Instagram is the best avenue for that. Until next week, folks, thanks for tuning in.